Brandon,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, I mean, she's actually,
Well, because that's probably a 12-month contract, so she probably started in July. when she-
yeah, yep. She pretty much, her last day was in Lennox, and the next day she was.
Just right over, yeah.
Boom.
One contract to the next, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I asked that, I'm like, yeah, she would.
You're gonna have to move too, Brad.
Hmm?
You're gonna have to move too.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to think this year. Bill?
That's Bill.
No.
Bill's not on this committee.
Good morning.
He told me that I was
I don't want to,
He did not.
We not.
Actually, did.
I
was surprised.
Shoot.
Tyson, if you get any more of those requests for patches, just delete them.
Oh, yeah, I get one of them.
Yeah.
I got one.
You forwarded one to me, was it 2 weeks ago? And I pulled up my email and I
I'm
saw.
retired from ex police department for 40 years, and I'm
Oh.
collecting badges and patches and.
I feel like I've gotten too many of those for them to be an actual thing.
They are not the actual thing.
It's not some retired guy.
There is a lot of retired law enforcement that do have those collages like that, and they look very nice. But what we're seeing is I live in France, I live in Ireland, in England, and why are we shipping our patches over there? You can go onto the internet and buy our uniform shirt. Now you got a patch, so we don't give them out.
Fair enough.
All right. Shall we get started, folks?
Yes.
We don't have an actual call to order or any formal process to this. It's just a committee meeting. I don't think we have any visitors that request time to be heard, but if anybody wants time in this group, feel free to use it now, I guess. If not, I'll move on to the items under new business. It's really what we're here for tonight. A review of the replacement schedule and the costs first, and then a discussion on funding of capital equipment replacement schedule. Brian, if you want to talk a little bit about how this was put together, and Tyson, you can chip in too. One note on here, I don't know if the fire truck is at the list. We noticed earlier today that a fire truck, you remember, those of you on the fire EMS police committee, that the fire department will need a new pumper in the next few years. So that wasn't on here when I looked at it this morning. That's now been added. It is added in 2730 on the bottom of this list. And then on the next one, on the fund balance schedule, you'll see how that's reflected. And that's something we're gonna have to talk through tonight. So I'll leave it to Brian and Tyson to talk a little bit about how that list was developed, and how we came up with the purchase price, and year of replacement.
You want me to start?
Go for it.
Well, a lot of this list has been compiled over the last several years. Everything that I could find was scattered all over the place. Some of it was missing, but I just tried to go through every single piece of equipment, at least that the streets department had, any information on it, on the piece of equipment, and then any files that were created. There weren't really any from before my time here. I just tried to gather everything that I had. I went through a lot of it, actually, the stuff that I did find had purchase prices on it. And then over the years, different people have compiled the other equipment lists and what it appraises for, I guess, for insurance purposes. So that was a factor in evaluating some of this stuff. And then when I started putting these on the schedule and how much some of the stuff's actually worth, currently, I used two or three, sometimes there was a third one, most of the time, it's just the two largest reselling websites for heavy equipment. And that goes for usually US, sometimes Canada as well, but it's all over the country. So there was several selections of the exact equipment that we have that's being sold right now. And then according to the manufacturer's useful life, that was where I kind of came up with the replacement date. Some of these are in much better condition and will far exceed especially the year replacement dates for a couple of these. The biggest equipment that we have, the 2002 grader, I mean, that was purchased for $135,000. There's still, that exact one is still going for well over $100,000, and that's the only ones I could find have many more hours. So with the very low hours, I mean, we could use these for another 40 years. The difficult part will be finding parts when they do start to break down. But I just tried to categorize everything. One, most expensive, but two, what needs to be replaced first, and then stuff that will kind of phase out that we no longer will use or want to seek replacement. Obviously, some of the bigger equipment, I don't foresee getting rid of them anytime soon. They work great. We spend a nominal amount on repair and maintenance every year, but that's just kind of preventative. I think it is necessary, and according to some of these other ones I've seen, these are in exceptional condition for as old as they are. And I would really not want to give those up for something that's newer and when they work just fine, especially if they're holding their value quite well with at least two of these larger pieces of equipment. I kind of threw in the parks, some of the park stuff, the mowers, the baseball drag. Those are really the only ones I kind of put in there. It's a little bit easier to evaluate them and to budget for them. They are far less expensive than some of this other equipment, but they are also getting towards well, at least one of them is getting close to the end of its useful life, but they are starting to show their age and having many more repairs that are needed. So I kind of just put on there, just knowing how much we use them and when they should be replaced. I kind of tried to project far enough out that I would know when they need to be replaced. And we could have a year where they just happen to run perfectly. We don't have to spend any money on them, so that would, while unlikely, would be helpful, I suppose.
Brian, what year is that, the street sweeper's at 2015?
The 2015, yes.
And we're hoping to get another 4 years out of it?
At least, yeah. I mean, I'm bought into
Is
it.
2030 like a best guess, or? is
Yeah, I mean, ideally, that would be, based on the hours that we're using right now, projected out to 2030, it would be something that I would like to get away from and continue getting closer to new.
Mhm.
They are expensive, but I mean, we bought it new to us, but I mean, it was at the end of its useful life for a different municipality, so we kind of just picked it up at the beginning of another life,
Right.
which we kind of struggled with at the beginning, but it's been decent so far. We've only had 2 minor repairs this year, so I mean, some repairs were to be expected, but I think the preventative maintenance in the meantime and after every shift kind of helps with all of this to keep it in as good a condition every single day as we can.
Will, you're on a 5-year replacement schedule for cruisers?
Yes.
How many miles or engine hours are you putting on in those 5 years?
We're getting right, as of right now, we're expected to hit probably about 100,000 miles per vehicle. Prior to getting into the Tahoes in 2021, We were barely hitting 50,000
Right.
miles.
Right. Yeah, you need to look at the number of arrests we have, doing more directed patrol, more federal overtime.
Court cases, having to travel back and forth.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, there's excessive.
So
use
basically,
of
you're planning
vehicles.
on 20,000 miles a year on your patrol.
That'd be a safe bet as of right now. The other thing that I would like to add as far as the police line of vehicles go is that if we continue to purchase the same vehicle, when we take equipment, like when we take the equipment out of the 23,
Yeah.
we can cost
Might be
share
purpose.
and repurpose it for the new squad car. We don't have to outfit it every time we get a new squad car, we don't have to get.
As long as the interior doesn't change too much, then it's ours that are changeable.
Yeah, basically, all the heavy dollar amount equipment that we use is gonna be our radars, our cameras, and our radios, is the huge dollar amounts. And regardless of what vehicle, we can transfer those into the new vehicles, as long as they're still in good operating condition. So, the projected outcome was used off from the 2026, I'm assuming. And that was a complete upfit due to the fact that none of the equipment in any of the towers would fit in the 26. And we also needed a new radio, so.
Tyson on ambulance, we've got 2 ambulances in there, 2029 and 2024, or 2034. Our budget projections for this, what we hope is a joint jurisdiction funding solution, includes enough money for capital expenses, right?
Yeah.
So we could consider those ambulance costs covered if this happens.
Yeah, I kind of went on the conservative approach whenever I made it, assuming that the ambulance just falls through, but it's not looking like that anymore.
And same for ambulance transfers. We'll always have a pool transfer, but I imagine ambulance transfer will go down under this scenario as well, so that will save us a little bit too, so.
And pools are usually mostly covered by third penny
Right,
anyway, rather
Okay.
than second penny.
Would we still have a proportionate cost of, like, when it's joint jurisdiction on
But
the capital?
it'd
that-
probably be about half of what we currently pay.
The capital specific, would we still need to keep some in here, or you're saying that entire line item would be?
We could probably, well, we'll get to, I may have moved us to the next agenda item inadvertently here, but. Questions on the schedule, prices, future needs?
I think it's a good idea to plan for the schedule, even though chances are some of the stuff will drift out and be serviceable longer. But if we plan for it, then it's covered.
Yeah, there's things on here like the 2014 F-150. We will probably repurpose that to parks next year. Repurpose the 2019
Yep.
to streets from water and sewer, what they're gonna do. I don't know if they're looking at a 1 ton or what they're looking at.
Probably 3/4 ton.
Yeah. So that changes, those kinds of situations change what's on the schedule as well. Just because we have a plan doesn't mean we're going to, you know, just kind of throw cash out here and there to buy the equipment. We're typically pretty frugal when it comes to this kind of stuff, so. Anything else on the schedule?
Is there a certain reason why certain things are in order the way they are? Is it just by age, it looks like?
This is organized by department.
But then, for example, the streets kind of jumped from 2004 to 14 and then back down to 97. And then back up in age again. So I was just curious if there was a reason why.
That was just the order I typed them in at. It
Yeah,
was
I
kinda
think-
random.
Okay,
I think,
no,
yeah.
that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a different reason.
When I made the list, my OCD made me do it in order of year that it was manufactured, but then I adjusted it to have the stuff that needs to be replaced first at the top of the list, so.
If nothing else, let's move to the meat and potatoes of this meeting, and that's the asset projections. Just a little bit from my memo here. You know, the concern we have is having a schedule for capital equipment replacement. Outside of utilities, it usually lies on second pension or general fund, and that when we purchase big items in years like this and previous years, it really hampers what we can do in those funds. So tonight we're going to talk a little about how best to fund replacement of the listed equipment. Originally, I thought we needed about $215 a year over the next 8 years to sustain the plan. That's actually going to be more with the fire vehicle. So just a few notes on what we've got here. Street maintenance fund, so 220, where we get the funding mechanism there, the street maintenance fee that every property in town pays. That could be considered a funding source for some equipment for the streets department, but keep in mind that doing so is going to leave us even further behind for an eventual mill and overlay project. You could transfer a budgetary amount from each fund or department each year into Fund 212 to help cover this. So because Parks in 3 years needs a new mower at $25,000, we could transfer in over the next 3 years enough money to cover that, for example. Current sales tax bonds mature in 2031 with no further bonds planned at this time. There are some options we should probably look at when it comes to the fire department equipment in particular. You know, $1,000 or $1 million purchase, you know, we're looking at about $200,000 down as a deposit, we believe, and then the other $800,000 due upon delivery. That's a lot of cash to spend on something that's going to last a long time. And if sales tax bond rates are favorable, then yet you should definitely look at either a bond there or a USDA loan or something along those lines. We have also looked this afternoon at some other options. I think we should look at the Federal Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. They'll probably put us a little bit further behind schedule because applications are due in June, is that right? So, you know, if we don't hear until September on whether that grant is funded, that kind of puts us a little bit behind the 8 ball. So I want to talk with the fire department about, you know, how detrimental would that be to your schedule. Then I think probably the other more feasible option is to take advantage of the what we call the CAPS bill in this past year's legislative session, whereas cities can now institute an additional 1 cent sales tax to fund capital improvements and capital equipment over 5 years. So you know, that would give us, you know, about $3 million, a little bit more over 5 years to help fund some equipment. I wouldn't put all of that in here. I think we have other uses for the CAPS bill that we need to take into account. But in terms of, you know, we look at CAPS bill, if you're limited to 5 years, or in our case about $3.3 million, that really doesn't do much for us on an infrastructure project. That's maybe not even a full summer's worth of work on an infrastructure project anymore. You know, Central Basin 4 was a $10.3 million project that took about 2 summers, just under 2 summers. Well, think of how far $3 million is going to get us on a project like Central Basin 4. It wouldn't even get us to First Avenue on that project. So it's a limited use when it comes to those projects unless it's combined with some other funding source. But we do have, you know, Master Parks Plan coming up that I think we need to, we're going to need some funds for that as well, and the CAPS bill may be our best option to make something like that happen as well. So at that, I'll leave it open for discussion. Our hope tonight is to come away with some some idea of how you want us to structure this, that we can come back with a final meeting, and provide a final recommendation for how to move forward, and then take that to the full council.
Nate, remind me again, where are we at? What's the dollar amount on that street maintenance fee?
The $2 a foot, $250. Yep. Which is, higher than you're gonna find in a lot of communities. But we also know not high enough that it's going to cover all of our future needs. We've done the math over and over, we know that it's not enough for, that mill and overlay project that's 10 years out, 15 years out. The bigger worry is whether, and maybe this is a worry for a future council, I don't think it is, but 25 years from now, when Central Basin 1 has finally reached 35, 40 years old, it'll probably be our prime candidate for an actual mill and overlay project, because most of our other streets in town are not built well enough to do a mill and overlay. They were done with blotter coats or layer of chip seal, that you can't actually do anything, there's no structural use for it. So we're probably a ways out from a mill and overlay, but we also know that, unless something significant changes, there's not enough there for a significant project over time. Because in the 10 years following the mill and overlay for Central Basin 1, you've now got a mill and overlay for Central Basin 2, 3, 4, Main Street. Is that it? Boynton and South Main are all concrete,
Yeah.
so.
How much would another 50 cents generate to?
What are we pulling in this year in the street? I'm betting 225 is our revenue this year.
It's something like that. We budgeted 377.
377. So let's call it 350. You get another 70,000 or so per 50 cents. We also have new streets coming on this year. So phase 2 of Countryside will be assessed this year for the first time, I think, if not last. So we just accepted those. So you've got the first properties there that are starting to pay into that as well. What does everybody think of the idea of every department paying in some amount every year in their regular operating budget?
If they did, I don't know how we would divvy that up, because some of these are projected years out, and I know that some of our departments are needing things sooner than others. My concern is, okay, we, for example, provide for our streets and fire next year, but then we don't have funds for the cruiser the following. Not saying that that's going to happen, it's just a concern of like, how do we appropriate the certain percentages? Like, do we break it down by percentage? Do we break it down by need?
Do you say the second penny fund is responsible for 50%, departments are responsible for the other 50%? Do you? Yeah.
Right, and then how do we break it down? Do we break it down by department, like which one, police is going to need 60% of that budget within the next 5 years, so therefore they, have X amount of percentage that they need to contribute.
Geez, Will.
I know I'm the problem.
We joked that the minute you put minute you put lights and sirens on something, it becomes twice as expensive as any other piece of equipment, so.
It is actually fairly close, being factual.
Is there a way to put a percentage on a department surplus at the end of the year?
Same more, like they have to budget a certain net.
Well, yeah, I mean, just if they're going through their budget, like if I make the streets budget and they come in 12% under, or whatever number it is, there would be allocated a certain amount of that. That way I'm not trying to budget specifically for an amount at the beginning of the year.
Just if it happens to end with excess, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I
Yeah.
don't,
I see
it
what
would
you're
vary
saying.
from year to
Yeah.
year, but.
Well, there's been years that I have allocated some of my budget towards specific equipment. And during the year, I felt that that equipment wasn't as necessary at the time, so I forego spending my budget on that, and I've had extra in budget. But what I've also learned is when you're dealing with equipment, such as what Brian learns, is that you don't know when
Mhm.
you're gonna be replacing a transmission. Or, in my case, having a motor tore down to put seals in it. The nice thing that we've had with continuing our maintenance schedule on it is typically we find a lot of those problems in their newer vehicles. So it's still covered under the factory warranties. My only concern would be trying to cannibalize a budget that has been well thought out to try to make sure that I have X amount of dollars, which I know I need to give back. To me, that it feels like working in reverse. If I know I need the X amount of dollars out of my budget, then why am I budgeting that? If I can afford to not budget it, to give it back, why did I budget it? And that's something that we've worked on for years here at the city is it a necessity or is it a want? Do we budget lean or are we trying to stay heavy in areas? And I've tried to stay lean in most places. So, that would be my only concerns.
Could just include it in your machinery equipment line.
Yeah, that's true.
We've done that.
You just say, well, we need a new cruiser in 3 years. We need a new dump truck in 2 years. Each department puts $20K in every year into machinery equipment, and that's what we use as a formula for the fund transfer from 101 to 212.
That's manageable. We know what the cost is potentially gonna.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, because you're gonna need 100 in 3 years, you need to do 33 each year. I'm not saying that, the departments need to come up with a full thing. And I think that's what second penny, I think that's what we're trying to get it to be used for, more consistently. The problem short term is the sales tax bonds. Long term is not as much of a problem because those come off in 5 years.
Well, many moons ago, they used to set 10,000 aside in a specific account so that when we got to that point where we needed to purchase a cruiser. And I know that was probably frowned upon or not.
It's
most
not
appropriate.
necessarily frowned upon if you keep track of where it's going.
Right.
I couldn't tell you today where that money, like even when we were going through the pool bond and what had been fundraised and set aside, it took a lot of work to figure out exactly how much had been set aside, and because nobody had ever kept a solid record of it.
Yeah, so and I mean, at the end of the day, when we would go to purchase our cruiser, we'd already have 30K sitting there waiting for us, and then we had to come up with another 15K.
Right.
And it was a little bit more manageable on budget wise, so.
And that's kind of what we're trying to do here in just a larger sense.
I like the idea of each department funding their own depreciation. But for it to work, I think somewhere along the line, there has to be like, for lack of better terms, seed money on the front side in the fund. 'Cause
Well, you need to build it
It's not
somewhere.
gonna cover next year,
No.
right? So I think that's something that we need to decide where we're gonna get that money.
It was definitely a little more palatable until the fire was in there. Which
Yeah.
now I'm like, how in the world?
We felt the same thing, we felt the same way. But there's, again, I don't know. 9 times out of 10, I would not recommend using cash for a $1 million purchase. It just, you're talking about assets that are going to last 20 plus years. And I know the chatter is, oh, the city's got more debt, they're borrowing more and buying more equipment. Well, yeah, because it's gonna last 20 years, and it's gonna outlast the life of the bond. Nobody buys a house with, well, some people do buy a house with cash. I doubt anybody here is buying a house with cash. And there's a reason you do that. Well, first of all, because it appreciates. Because it's such a large purchase that nobody's gonna, why would you do that? As long as interest rates stay favorable for us.
I'm only going into my second budget process, but, it's been very lean, so without knowing how, like you kind of said, what percentage or what that looks like, it's hard to, we're kind of on a bare bones, unless something's breaking, which I know that we're trying to prevent that by having a schedule like this, so that we have less of those costs for fixes and that sort of a thing, but,
Yeah, and I'm definitely not saying that we don't need a fire truck by any means. We definitely wanna keep our citizens' priority, intact. My concern is how to create those percentages or a schedule to meet those needs for all of the departments. And maybe that just means we meet on a more regular basis, maybe annually at minimum.
Yeah, I think we could easily do that, certainly as part of the budget process. My gut reaction is that every year we'll do a capital outlay resolution that would detail, this is how much we're putting into Fund 212 from other funds as capital outlay. And this is how much we're actually spending out of 212. Just to make that makes it more of a solid, policy action of the city council, not just, best guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah, being able to.
it'll always be reflected in the budget,
Right.
which, has the full effect of law, but the capital outlay resolution spells it out a little cleaner, so that folks understand exactly what's happening with, why that money is moving from one pocket to another pocket and then being spent out of another one, so.
That and wondering why we have a new truck on the road.
Yeah.
Yep. Not just because we want them.
Other comments, questions on this?
Would it be helpful if each department head went through and kind of figured out like what they would want to put on kind of a cycle for equipment to replace?
I think that would be reasonable.
And then we have a better outlook.
Here's how much I think we could do each year.
Right. And we kind of get a schedule. I mean, I've been toying with this for the past 5 years, so I mean, I've got some experience in it
Yeah.
with my department. And I feel like it's helped during the budgeting times, that I'm not like, oh, I need 5 new laptops, sorry guys, you know, at $5,000 a piece. You know, that constant upkeep and rollover. If we put it on paper, then it's not just me that knows that I'm coming. It's gonna be on your guys' purview long before I
Yeah,
stand in
it'll
front
be
of
on
you.
the radar. What's the general reaction to Cap's bill putting a new sales tax in place for some of this?
Overall, it looks like a great idea, but however though, like you said, we've been pretty lean. Is that necessary? What if we looked at like a half?
And we need to, well, we can't, it's either all or none.
It's all or none?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can't do a half step. Now, you could do it for a shorter period of time. So that's less money overall. But, you know, and these numbers need to be reworked again. But if you look at the bottom line here, projected end of year balance for that fund balance, you know, 2030, that's why. I mean,
Right.
even without an ambulance and with money coming in from other funds, we're still gonna be in a negative fund balance for at least 2 years.
What would your recommendation if we did do an extra, for how many years?
I would max it out at 5 years.
At 5?
Because number one, you don't know what happens in that 5 years. We may be taking in $620,000 a year right now in sales tax, per cent, per penny. What if, 2009 hits again in 2029? Now we got a major recession, now all of a sudden our sales tax that year is $400,000. Well, shoot, now we can't pay for everything. Because that recovery could take time for us. Now I don't want to say totally insulated from those economic impacts, because, you know, typically when you think of small towns, people who are shopping here you're getting groceries, gas, those kinds of things, the essentials, right? That used to be the case. Now we also get sales tax for the Amazon orders that we all make. And, you know, we all see the Amazon delivery vehicles and how often they're in town, and at 609 North Juniper in particular, you know, it's not a little thing. That's responsible for a huge portion of our sales tax.
But now that's in addition to what we already budget, correct?
The caps would be, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And there's a specific process. It has to be approved by the voters. You need to set up a capital improvement board that is comprised of a different board than the council. There needs to be a capital plan for that fund, those funds that are coming in under the caps bill. So it's very specific, and there's a lot of safeguards in there, so that you really can't deviate from it without significant public input. And I would still say, you know, the AFG Assistance to Firefighters grant would be, if we could get that, it'd be great. I mean, it does fund equipment, can fund equipment. It's been a long time since we've been awarded. I know the fire department applied a couple of years ago for new SCBA's, a self-contained breathing apparatus. I can't remember if they were awarded that. Do you remember? 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
I don't think they were, because I think they ended up using their own funds to cover eventual replacement of that. So that would be a best case scenario. Of course, Tyson and I are really, truly looking forward to another federal grant application, following the one that we did with Will last month.
It was very.
I personally found it very rewarding.
To finish or to do?
To be done with, yes. It's gonna, the only thing that could make me feel
Just
better is
making
getting
sure
the
you're
actual
sarcastic.
grant.
It was definitely challenging.
It was. Yeah, things would disappear one day on my list and end up on Tyson's list and I couldn't access them. It was,
It would have you fill the whole page out and kick you completely out
where
of
to
it.
go? It was. There were several minor freak out moments where you were logged in for an hour and you've been typing everything out. And thankfully I saved most of my stuff on a separate document. But you just be working and poof, everything's gone.
Yeah, 30
And you
minutes.
You just
You
timed
just
out.
look at it, it just, no, you're actively working on it and it just disappears.
It just like
Page
blanks
crashes.
out for a second, comes back and it's blank.
Yeah.
Oh.
30 minutes of work.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's terrible.
Of course, you could do it in 15 the second time.
Exactly why I kept it in a separate document.
It was challenging.
That would be frustrating.
So if fire department applies for that, how long is that process?
The grant process itself is probably 3 months from application deadline to award. Micah Strasser with Fire Department just messaged me. Every year they do fill out an AFG grant for a pumper. So they have been applying for this, it just has not been awarded.
Okay.
So,
So this is tentatively, so in the event that they're not awarded, it would just be pushed back an additional year?
yeah, if they would, let's say they apply next year and it still isn't awarded, then we at some point we gotta pull the trigger and say, okay, we gotta do this, because it's a 3-year build,
Right.
you know, and we can't,
Do we have an absolute deadline then?
I don't think it's a drop dead date, but when were we there? 3 months ago, looking at their equipment in the building. The one that they'll be replacing, it's up there in age. I think this is one that we bought used back in 18 from somewhere in upstate New York, if I remember right. It was probably 5-6 months before I started, if I remember right. 'Cause we had the old one sitting at the street shop, and that was at Bruce and Joyce's for a while, I think. We rented space there for it.
And they take pristine care of their equipment.
Yes, they do.
But you can't help it, you know, anything mechanical is gonna break at some point in their line of work.
You just don't want it to be on an active call.
They can't afford to have it with
Right.
people inside a burning structure and have one of their pumpers
Right.
go out. It can't happen.
Well, I think keep going after the grant, obviously, as we have been already. Maybe third time's a charm, I don't know. But if we really, I think we need to hear what feedback is on the Parks Master Plan as well, before moving forward with this CAPS idea. But I think that might be a solid way to move something forward for fire equipment. And maybe for building expansion too, while we're at it, so. One of the other possibilities, and Rob, you mentioned making sure we have some seed money in there. Fund balance right now in 212 is not gonna look great at the end of this year. And we knew that going into the year based on our budget. We could always move some money over from the DOC funds. You want the full council to be aware of that request, obviously. But that you could use some interest revenue from 604 for that as well. We've got 10.6 probably in that account right now. Even with the payments we're making out on a regular basis for surcharge credits, we're still making more money than we're spending, so.
One note I had here was, is it possible to use the interest off that money?
It is, yeah. It doesn't have, the interest doesn't have dedicated use outside of that surcharge credit, so.
You're saying to kick the fund off, just to get it
just to
going?
get it started.
Yeah,
Tran-
I mean,
what you do is you transfer in,
yeah.
Yeah,
half of the
Yeah.
interest
Yeah.
for 27 from
Yeah.
604 over to 212. Tyson's mapping this out, it's trying to.
I'm trying to think of how much interest we make over the surcharge as of now.
Probably 100,
I think it's somewhere around there.
yeah.
I just think there has to be money to start,
Mhm.
and we fund it through depreciation from the different funds, for the different departments. Before we're solvent, we're several years down the road, and there's things coming that need to be purchased next year.
Brian, Tyson, do you guys feel like we have enough info to put together a funding plan?
I think
Or
so.
two, a couple options maybe?
Yep, at least one.
Okay.
That's some good direction.
Further comments, questions from the committee? Anything else we should be looking at? All right,
We briefly, sorry,
well,
we briefly talked about the bonds maturing in 31. I know you said that we don't have any other plans at this time. Are we anticipating anything beyond 2031 that is going to be extensive enough that we want to not take that into account?
Nothing on our radar, I'll say that. The projects we have planned. Let me go back and talk about those two sales tax bonds first. We pulled those bonds for a couple of projects, to keep surcharges on other projects down. So we used it on Whiten Avenue, and then we used it for, South Main Street. Those are the two primary projects. So we didn't have an SRF, there's no surcharge attached to the South Main Street project because we used a sales tax bond instead. It's a fairly cheap project. 900,000, sound about right, 80 million?
Yeah, it was
Give or
close to
take.
that, yeah.
The mistake that, and I said this to Tyson this afternoon, next time we want to do a sales tax bond on a street project, it needs to be longer than, it needs to be advertised longer than 10 years. Those streets are gonna last a lot longer than 10 years, and we should really be matching the amortization to the life of the asset. So with that being said, the only reason I would suggest using a sales tax bond after those come off is if we have a project that doesn't have some other funding source, or we're trying to keep those surcharges down.
So for example, if we do Central Basin 5, and we currently have that DOC fund, and we can't get any funding, where are we at with that?
I would not recommend a sales tax bond today, just because of how high our debt service is in that fund right now. It's about 50% of the fund.
Little
Revenue.
under, but yeah.
So you're already, in next year's budget, for example, if we've got 600,000 coming in to fund 212 in sales tax, we've got just under 300,000 that'll be going out in debt service for those two sales tax bonds. And you don't want to overtax, you don't want to have overcommit what you have in that sales tax debt service, because it takes away from everything else that you're going to be able to do, including this, including the equipment.
Okay.
Not that you can't, it just means that you have a lot less flexibility going forward.
That's what I was wondering.
And maybe in 3 years, we see some commercial growth too, we don't know. That changes, the sales tax revenue that's coming in. We're gonna have another restaurant, we're gonna have another retail store come in. Somebody said to me the other day, why can't we have the South Dakota version of Nebraska Crossing? I don't like that idea. We're lacking an interstate, but we got the land, if something big were to change, sales tax wise, sure, that'd be great, but we just can't bank on it.
I'd love to have a Banana Republic here.
I bet you would. I've heard that is your favorite, your store of choice.
You know they don't sell bananas, right?
They don't? Never mind.
Anyone else? If not, I would expect us to have another meeting here, probably within the next 4 weeks, just to finalize this, and have a final recommendation to the city council by the second meeting in September, which means that we can then incorporate any approvals into our FY27 budget in October, before the budget meetings, which are just around the corner.
Yay.
Yay! Thank you, everyone.
Felt like we had all kinds of time when he sent the email out. He's like, oh, he sent it out early, we got all kinds of time. And then here we
Almost
are.
here.